What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the High Dev Perspective, a podcast where we embark on a transformative odyssey of healing, awakenings, and expanded consciousness. I am your host on this transformative journey, Devinair Mathis. Welcome, welcome. Before we get into any of the episodes, I actually just wanted to give you guys a formal introduction as to who I am and what my intentions are behind this podcast, and just give you a clear understanding as to who the fuck I am. For most of you guys, if you know me, you've probably followed me off of TikTok. I do have a nice little reach there. And then for others, you have been following me on Instagram and following my little rants that I would do on my Insta stories. Um, so yeah, I have moved those rants over to a platform of my own, like I said I was going to do. And one of those crazy rants, basically, what I was experiencing in that moment was a massive awakening of information and knowledge that I was receiving regarding self in that moment or in those moments. And I was just so compelled to share with everyone because in my mind, I was just like, yo, the fact that knowing all of this information about myself, you guys don't necessarily need to be stuck in your journeys anymore. If you just go ahead and do what I do, you know what I'm saying? The world would be a better place and we'll have this clear understanding. Well, it's not that easy. And I think that me having this platform is going to be a nice tool to help navigate that journey because this is not a journey for the weak. I can assure you that. And you have to remain balanced if you're going to embark on a spiritual transformative journey. And obviously, with the episodes upcoming, we'll kind of explain most of that. But let's get back into who I am. So I started my self development journey back in 2019. And prior, honestly, I actually had started this journey way back when, but I wasn't aware of it until the year 2019. And if you think about it, what I'm about to explain regarding my journey, you'll probably take what resonates and have this clear understanding that, oh shit, you were also starting your journey then, but you weren't aware of it. Um, so, like I said, I started mine, or I was fully present for mine in 2019. And how I experienced that was I was dating this guy who introduced me to, I would say, things that I had never thought that I could experience uh, as far as a relationship. You know what I'm saying? And it was beautiful. It ended. It was very short lived. However, I took so much from that experience, and what ended up happening after we had broke up. Um, this little voice in my head, I kid you not, this little voice in my head told me to take your ass to Europe. This is exactly what I heard. Go to Europe. You're going to be okay. I know this is scary, but you are protected. I kept hearing it. I kid you not. This was a small, faint voice coming from the right side of my brain that kept saying, go to Europe. You're going to be okay. Go to Europe. You're going to be okay. Um, so a bitch did. And, after I did, I realized what this experience was supposed to teach me. And honestly, it was just supposed to teach me, me coming from, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I moved out to Los Angeles 10 years ago, back in 2013. I've been out here for 10 years. Um, and when I moved out to Los Angeles, I started to experience like, different things, the ocean, you know what I'm saying? Things that I'd never thought that I was ever going to, be able to experience, living in Minneapolis. But anywho, going back to Europe, um, so it taught me the fact that, I've always had these hopes and dreams. I've always saw myself bigger than what I've always thought I was. And that experience of me going out to Europe was honestly a taste of what was in store for me. Like I said, I went out there by myself, you guys. I did what, damn near a whole month out there. I went to London. I went to Paris, France. Um, I went to Iceland. I went to Amsterdam. It was a whole experience. I basically ate, I prayed, I loved. You know what I'm saying? And when I came back to Los Angeles from that transformative experience, like I said, in that moment, I had came back and I was just like, you know what? This world is so big. There's nothing that you can't do. And so I went and I went ahead and started a self discovery journey. Like I furthered my self discovery journey. Um, like I said, so that was in 2019, and then immediately after, the following year, we had hit the pandemic, and so with the pandemic, being in full effect, I used that opportunity to further the journey, the further the self development journey. And so what ended up happening was the self development journey ended up becoming a healing journey. And it just kind of transpired on its own. Again, like I said, like I started just doing a self development journey. During the pandemic, I was introduced to stones. I was reading, books on the mind, the study of the mind. I remember a good friend of mine had recommended the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, and literally that was an eye-opening experience reading that book too. It taught me about small minds and large minds, and just this whole thing. And I was introduced to meditation during the pandemic, anything that I could do to keep my mind going, because I knew that I was going to be in this solitary confinement or whatever you want to call it. I was going to be basically, I was going to be stuck in my room for a smooth year. So I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do, how I was going to keep my mind, my body, and my soul going. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I was introduced to yoga. At the time, I was introduced to healing crystals and the metaphysical properties of them. And bitch, like I told you, it just ended up becoming this thing. It just became this bigger and bigger and bigger thing. Now, what you experience when you're doing a healing journey, when you have this amount of information, um, you tend to have your head in the clouds. So as much as you're high in the clouds with all this information, it's very, very important that you stay grounded. And that's where the whole balance comes into of the world and myself, and I'm starting to see things a little bit differently. And then on top of that, you have to understand we were confined to our apartments, our rooms, and some more shit for a smooth year. So with that experience on top of having a healing experience, I was a little bit fucked. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit mind fucked coming out of this thing. So I was a little bit to myself. I was very much so reserved. And it took, I'd say, a few months for me to finally experience like the real world and trying to navigate all the information that I was aware of within my, knowing myself, and then trying to operate that into this video game that we call life. And so that was that. And then, like I said, awakenings come in so many different kinds of ways. You can have an awakening through a breakup, um, a birth, a rebirth, and of course, a death. And in November of 2021, um, I lost my mother unexpectedly. Um, and that was probably the biggest awakening that I had experienced in my journey at the time, prior to me doing the self development, self discovery, healing journey, and whatnot. Um, Dealing with that was an awakening in itself. I literally, like I said, I had to put everything on hold. And it was in that moment that I had to step up. And the only thing that I could think about in those moments or in that moment was, I need to get my mother to rest. I need to get my mother to rest. And it was really hard because she had passed away November 16th. And right around the corner was Thanksgiving. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm even, even in this present moment, because I'm trying to go back into, how I was feeling. I can't answer that other than the fact that I was just so numb to the entire thing. I was in shock. I was in disbelief, and I truly didn't believe that I was doing what I was doing, as far as setting up funeral arrangements, figuring out if she was going to be cremated or if she was going to be buried. The whole experience itself, I was I was just there. I was just there, and I was just guided. And I was guided by a higher power, because it literally took over my entire body. I was that numb to the whole situation. The only thing that I could wrap my mind around the whole thing was just the fact that I just lost my best friend. And if for those anybody who knew, my mother was my best friend, and she still is my best friend. But it was just like, I just lost her. I was just on the phone with her. And this shit's not making sense. And so, like I said, just stepping up, numb to the entire experience, I did what I had to do. And finally, after everything was all, she was finally put to rest, I stayed home for uh, a few more months, because I didn't want to go home. I was afraid of how I was going to react when I came back to Los Angeles, because I was going to go back home, and I was going to go back home alone. And I ended up staying for, I ended up burying her back in early December, and I stayed in Minnesota until like the end of January. And when I came back home, I experienced my rock bottom. I got heavily into drugs. And when I say drugs, I mean hard drugs. Um, and for those who don't know, I worked at a bar. I worked in the nightlife industry here in Hollywood. So the access to those uh, things are just easy. You know what I'm saying? So I knew exactly who I needed to talk to. You know what I'm saying? And I just wanted to numb the pain. I wanted to keep, I was already numb in Minnesota, and I wanted to stay numb coming back home. I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't have my breakdown yet. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't. I had to show face. You know what I'm saying? I had to show face when I was out in Minnesota. I had to be that representative. You know what I'm saying? Like I was next in throne for, for the crown, and I just had to do what I needed to do. I couldn't have any feelings. I couldn't have any emotion. At least this is what I was telling myself at the time. And so when I came out to LA, I let all that shit go. And yeah, I got heavily involved in it. I didn't want to address the fact that, she was no longer present. I didn't want to I just wanted to numb. I just wanted to stay numb. And it got to the point where I was ready to just let everything go. And I was ready to die, and I was hoping that this would be the source to take me out. Believe it or not, it was that whole experience was very short lived. That faint voice that I had back in 2019 that had told me to go to Europe. It was interesting because I was actually in the moment of doing drugs that same voice came back and said, Devinair, you do know that this is not the route that you're supposed to be going. You're bigger than this. And immediately following that voice, I heard my mother's voice. Confirmation. Um, I heard my mother's voice. And so that following day, I remember just like, I got to get help. I got to get help. And so I ended up going to finding a therapist through a recommendation. And I reached out to that therapist and I basically told him that I am on the path of self destruction and I need help immediately. I don't have a reason to live anymore. I had just lost my mother, who was not only my mother, my hero, my best friend, my everything. And I don't have a purpose or a desire to go on. And I thank that therapist. Shout out to Mitch. I thank him. He basically taught me all of the tricks and tools and mindful techniques to get myself back together and have a clear understanding as to what it's like to heal from such a tragic, experience as death. And so I ended up being with him for about a year and a half. And we moved rapidly. We moved rapidly because prior to that, I had already done some of the work of my own, with my self development journey back in 2019 and then during the pandemic. And so it was one of those things where I kind of evolved at a rapid speed, if you would say. Um, and because I am now in that space of, healing, I've developed a high level of awareness, um, and high level of consciousness for myself, which has brought me to this present moment. And I wanted to create a platform to help anybody who else has experienced or who's experienced anything that, like a death or anything like that, and what it looks like to heal from and how to move forward from it and how to accept it. Um, it's it's not easy. Um, a healing journey isn't easy. I'm in a space where I have recognized all of my past trauma as well as my triggers and things that have been holding me back from being at my greatest and highest potential. What I'm realizing regarding my own journey is, and this is universal, and take what resonates, as you navigate through this, like I say, I call it a video game. You navigate through this video game, which is called life. There's shit that's going to steer you off track. You're going to experience a lot of things, um, breakups, deaths, ups and downs, losses, wins. It's the negative side because everything is all about duality and polarity. A left and a right, up and down. And I'm going to talk about this a lot on this show because I have a huge, clear understanding of it. Let me get back to topic. When shit hits the fan and you experience a downfall, there comes a point where you need to identify, are you going to pick yourself up? Are you going to pick yourself up? Or are you going to allow yourself to stay down? And what I'm experiencing through the 37 years of me living on this life, or living on this in this video game and in this vessel, I found that I've fallen so much, but I've naturally gotten back up. It wasn't easy. I mean, there were certain times where I just got up quickly. The experience with my mother and her passing, I didn't get up as quickly, but I knew that I had to get up. You know what I'm saying? So I say that to say the most important part of this experience in you living and being on this video game is, how are you going to continue? How are you going to continue on with your life? What is that going to look like moving forward? And that's something that I had to identify within myself, especially after the passing of my mother. Like I said, I've hit some trials and tribulations, you know what I'm saying? But like the biggest hump was I don't we don't have in my life, and what I experienced, you guys, the last time I experienced death had to have been back in 2012, 2013, when my great grandmother passed away. So, fast forward, and then the next death in the family is your own mother. It, it does something to you. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely going to do something to you because you don't think that it's going to be, you know, your closest, the closest thing that you have. I say all that to say, um, this healing journey has taught me a lot, and what it's taught me is, how do I continue and how do I move forward and onward with my journey when I experience a loss. And like I said, loss, I'm going to say a loss is universal. A breakup, a car accident, those things. All of that I consider losses, not just a death. So, and I know that where we're at now in this world, we're experiencing a massive shift. We're experiencing a massive shift in energy, and the world as we know it is being split into two. We've got the old Earth and we've got new Earth, and me unknowingly decided to go on this healing journey. I found myself, experiencing and entering what they call the 5D. And because I've entered the 5D, it has allowed me to elevate consciously at high levels and high speeds. Um, I talked about, on my rants that I have, all of these abilities now, which are the God honest truth. I'm clear all, clairsentient, clairvoyant, clairaudience. I have a mind's eye now where I'm able to foreshadow and see things uh, prior to them actually happening. I'm sorry, I can see things in the future, but I just don't know exactly how to get there. Um, and I'm very, very good with reading energies. You can have a conversation with me. I can tell you right now if you're lying. Like it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I say all that to say I want to help others in picking up from wherever it is that they last left off, because at the end of the day we all have this ability. We may not have the same exact, my abilities may be different from yours. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, we all have these superpowers, is what I'd like to call them. We all have them. It's just a matter of identifying your trauma and recognizing your shadow and having a clear understanding and an understanding of who you are as a person in order for you to receive these superpowers. So, with that being said, um, I hope you have a clear um, understanding and understanding as to who I am and why this is very important for me. I've been called to share my story and my testimony, because at this point right now, how I see this world, I'm just a vessel. I mean, I've been here before. This is not my first time on this world, in this world. I've had many lives, multiple past lives here. Um, I think this is definitely going to be my last one. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. But it was for me going on this healing journey and having this clear understanding and understanding now, um, as to who I am, why I know what I know regarding who I am, and me knowing thyself. So, um, yeah, I hope that you join me on this wonderful transformative journey. I promise I won't make it as uh, uh, crazy as mine. I'm called to do this because we are all going to awaken eventually. Like I said, I do have a mind's eye. The whole world is going to shift within the next 10-15 years, and I've been called to facilitate and help you guys have a clearer understanding on how to navigate through it and experience it mildly, whereas I have experienced it pretty uh, head on, so to speak. Um, so yeah, that's going to wrap up this introductory episode of the High Dev Perspective. I hope that you guys have a better understanding of who I am and why I am called to do what I do. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to me on my social media platforms, either Instagram or TikTok. And both of them are just my first and last name, at Devinair Mathis, DEVINAIR MATHIS. Also, you are more than welcome to email me any questions that you have via email, and you can reach me at the high dev perspective at gmail.com. And that is the high, HIGH Dev, DEV, perspective, PERSPECTIVE, at gmail.com. And I'd love to answer any of your questions on the show. Oh, wow. This was incredible. Like I'm excited, you guys. Like I can't wait to dive into some shit. It's about to get crazy in this motherfucker. Okay. But no. Thank you again. And I will see you guys on the next episode. My first episode, we are going to dive into the big B, which is boundaries. Yeah. So thanks again, and I will see you guys next week. All right. Bye.